It's really interesting. Iran are beating Wales 2-0. So if we just put a special message out to all the Welsh, so that they don't have to watch any more of that absolute torture, I think that would go down very well. There are a couple of faces here today. So this is that meeting that we've had lined up in the diary for absolutely ages. So thank you very much, David, for giving up the time today.
Pleased to be here.
I mentioned at the America session yesterday how this could be a game changer, especially for loads of businesses who keep saying, yeah, but it's easy in tech. Well, let's see how easy it is, right? Because if you can sell it, David can deliver it. And also, if you're in tech and you're doing predominantly perm, this is a vehicle by which you can actually move into the recurring revenue, high net worth, and the joyful world of contracts, which obviously I love very much. We are recording this. There's a lot of people who are off on a Friday afternoon, so we're not really fussed because we are going to share this. Yes, David. So again, thank you. I kind of remember how we first met, but I think we probably put the relationship in top gear as we started into Q4, and we looked at the opportunity. Can I get you to introduce yourself and the things that you wanted to touch upon today? And if it's all right with everybody, we do this as an interview style. If you've got questions at any point, rather than put them as words, because I'll never read them, if you just basically want to come off mute and just shout them out, that's I think it's more befitting what we want to talk about today. Yeah, should we crack on? David, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I actually do remember. So I think I first came across you guys through Dean, actually, the two of you, but Dean in particular. I've got a friend who runs an ed tech SaaS platform company, and we were talking to Dean about maybe collaborating around that, and then it kind of got me into, I guess, what you guys are doing in RDLC. So yeah, started reading more and really liked what I saw. And I think, as you say, we started the conversation there, and I think there's some really good ideas that be great to jump into today. I guess, yeah, I'd like to kind of talk a bit about what we do, but more importantly, kind of how we can partner. I really love that word. I think it's exactly what we can offer. I'll talk about how we are kind of structured and what I think the sort of the collaborative relationship should or could look like. But I genuinely think it is an opportunity to kind of, I guess, as Gary kind of hinted at, we are good at the tech. We know what we're good at. We've been doing this for a long time. But I also think you guys, in the recruitment space, you're very good at what you do as well. And the thing is, from our perspective, we set ourselves up not to try to replicate that full fat consulting model, loads of sales guys running around. So we don't really focus on the relationship so much sometimes. And I think that's one thing that you guys are brilliant at. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a theme I'd like to talk about. And also, I guess, where the market's kind of heading. We are endlessly recruiting for engineers. So there's a kind of one side to it, which is the resourcing side. But then obviously from a client perspective, we work across different clients, as I'm sure you all do. And, happy to chat about our perspective on how it works with smaller clients versus bigger and what's going on in the market.
Should we start with that? Should we start with the opportunity?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm a man and boy techie recruiter. It was probably as we went into lockdown, we started talking about the evolution of what was once a recruitment agency into a modern day talent solutions partner. So businesses, especially around the tech space, were leveraging themselves and wheedling their way into that whole consultancy space, which was perfect. So we had an opportunity to work with end users, work with consultancies whilst being one, and to basically explore the opportunity of doing what was then, and to a lesser or greater degree these days, this hybrid role of SOW consulting, so outcome-based solutions provision. which is brilliant because there's more margin. Candidates don't have to do interviews. There is a ready supply of available freelancers. So for people who aren't actively involved in the tech space, where you have a mass shortage of talent in the perm arena, no such thing in contract. There's always a number. So would you go to work for £100,000 an hour in Azerbaijan? Generally, people will say yes. So there is a number. You can make contracts work and people will start work tomorrow. So we've kind of moved into that space pretty successfully. But I think you might agree with me, David, that the world is going in that way. So outcome based, incredibly aggressively.
Yeah. I mean, we've worked with everything from corporates to three blokes with a load of money and an idea. And I think the old kind of get a full fat consultancy and spend loads and loads of money is it just isn't appealing. But as you say, sometimes contractors aren't enough. Contractors can be amazing. You can get a high performing team, really kind of hitting out of the park. But sometimes what they want is actually that kind of halfway house, a bit of a wrap around it. So put some of that governance in. Maybe they're involved in a couple of the key senior people that are involved in making sure they're right. But then, as you say, the rest of the team is kind of filled in without needing to go through that endless interview cycle. But the governance is really the kind of key bit. And this for me is kind of the interesting bit. I spent a few years of my career in tech, in consulting with KPMG. Everybody thinks that the consultancies have some kind of special sauce, or they've got all these amazing frameworks or something. Essentially, they don't. They will obviously turn up with pretty PowerPoint slides, but at the end of the day, they're incredibly flexible around what the client wants, and there's no reason why this audience can't do the same. There's some building blocks around getting the governance right. But it can be scaled up and down to whatever the client essentially needs. Obviously, the smaller the company, the closer you're working to a CTO or CIO, the more you can make that flexible, and it can be very quick to kind of get an op model in place. With corporates, it takes longer, but with corporates, I've also had success in that space where, they think that it's either consulting or contractors. And actually, when you put something a bit more interesting on the table and say, well, how about a halfway house? Suddenly they're going, well, hang on, I'm getting sort of contractor level rates, but I'm getting a consultancy like experience, and I'm getting outcomes that I can kind of trust. And I'm doing it with a partner that knows my business. Maybe he hired my head of engineering, or, and actually I think that is, back to your point about the perm stuff. I personally think that's one of your competitive advantages in the space. If you do perm recruitment, you get to know senior people. By placing them, you can always take them out to lunch. You get an inside track on what's going on in the organization, which, trust me, every Big Four partner or consultancy partner in the world is desperate to kind of replicate. So your level of knowledge and insight, and then figuring out what the client actually wants, that is gold dust. And then, framing that in terms of governance and producing a kind of outcome based, that's all the stuff that, we can partner with you and it's kind of endlessly configurable, but at the end of the day, you get it right for the client. It feels good. You're giving them the opportunity to say yes.
Can I just simplify this a sec so everyone understands what we're talking about here?
Yeah, please.
So there are three options and three ways to make money in the freelance world, and we just call it the generic holistic freelance world. One, it's placing bums on seats to fill roles. So effectively, that might be to increase capacity for a team, replacing dead man's shoes. It might be something which is out of spec. So they don't need a perm team for this. They just might need a fix for a piece of project work. There's your traditional consultancy piece, whereby we can be a very, very, very cost-effective alternative to your traditional consultancy routes. So rather, if you work for a PGC or one of the other significant Deloittes, their price point is such, and they position themselves in a way by which if it really matters to you, it's worth paying the extra, because we're taking all liabilities insurances to make sure that this project gets done. The truth of the fact is that quite a lot of those people are fairly raw graduates. I mean, decent graduates. Compare a decent graduate to a proven freelancer who's used to landing, running, doing skills transfer, who's used to basically being in, out, do a job, piss off, work to the maximum of your capability. Contractors win every day of the week, and we don't have all of those sort of layers and layers of on costs. And then you've got the hybrid model, which I love. So if you think about some of the driving factors that businesses have at the moment, so if you speak to a customer, if you only sell contracts, you'll be willing to be slightly more cheeky, slightly more risky, and slightly more daring in terms of your pitch. So for example, if somebody is in a hyper growth state, so a business that's taken on recent investment, you could ask them, tongue in cheek, where was it that was in your investment deck that you said we're going to sit our thumbs for 6 months while we hire the ideal perm team before we cut any code in anger? Because that's how long it takes for you to build out your perm business and your perm perfect hire. Whereas on contracts, I can get you 4 people started tomorrow. It also means if businesses are trying to get something moving, so one of the 4 areas of change, so that's businesses trying to make millions. So it's all about innovation, first mover. Can we do something clever? It's businesses trying to save millions. So tech over talent, efficiencies. It could be businesses doing compliance, so a MiFID project. Or it could be an organization that's going through a period of pivoting to do something different. Contractors are absolutely ideal at that. It means then we can actually give organizations opportunity to do parallel development work. So rather than do a project, finish it, do a next project, finish it, we can get 4 projects running at the same time that all come together. It's like when you build the Channel Tunnel, you start digging both in Dover and in Calais, and eventually they come together, which takes half the time. So we can do some really creative things around that. And there are so many features and benefits to this. The killer app, I think, David, and you'll tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, given that you work both sides of the fence, the killer app is keeping it really, really simple and making it such that an organization doesn't have to go through layers of approvals and working with procurement. If we can give them a really simplistic way by which they pay half the fee or 3/4 of the fee based on time and materials, and the rest of that fee is based on your milestones, so making sure that both the quality and quantity of work is done, that'll do as a statement of work. And you can put that on one sheet of paper, and most organizations would be very comfortable to actually say yes to that, given that in practice and over the last 12 months, the average number of freelancers working on an SOW or a project is anywhere between 5 and 10. We're not looking for hundreds here. That's a really nice scale of project. What do you think about that, David?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think the simplicity is definitely. I mean, I've worked on consulting engagements. I spent a long time on the other side of the fence in investment banks, technology teams, and ran projects where we had Deloitte or Accenture or somebody like that, and you spend months bogged down with procurement, fighting over legal terms, and the minute procurement's involved, it's a little bit of a non-starter. I think you're right. The trick to this is you walk in the door with a kind of a very flexible, mold it to whatever the client needs. If it's 70-30, T&M versus outcome, that can easily be changed. Behind the scenes, we can do a lot of how we're going to demonstrate those outcomes can actually be achieved, and where do the people come from, and how do we guarantee the quality. There's loads of stuff that can sit behind that. But I think you're right. If you walk in the door selling something that can fit on one page, Jesus, the client's got he's got an option. He doesn't have to imagine spending months trawling through fighting procurement about who's the preferred vendor on this particular flavor of software this month. So yeah, I like it.
And for yourself, in terms of real life experience today, historically, S3 in the business that I had the joy of running, our bread and butter, 90% of the business that we won was with hyper growth, fast moving SMEs. So organizations that are on some sort of journey, because they're likely to want pods of people. They've got things to do, that they've got fiduciary duty to layers of investors, versus going after your big enterprise businesses. It's just too hard. And when it does come down, the push comes down to shove, are they realistically going to give it to a business that on the face of it is 10, 15, 20 heads strong versus one of the classic consultancies? Where are you seeing the majority of work coming to you currently?
I think you're right. For us, we tend to, I mean, that's our sweet spot. We've recently done some stuff with, as I said, guys who essentially got a bunch of money, but they haven't got a tech capability at all. And the beauty of that kind of experience is you're almost, so we can bring in architecture, a pseudo CTO, but those are probably few and far between. I think the bread and butter, as you say, for us is also that kind of mid cap. They've either got a product, they want to rapidly extend it, they've identified a new product space or market, essentially a market share they want to go after, and they need to move quickly, and they don't have 6 months to wait to build the team out, and they don't want the team forever anyway. So I think those are really, really nice opportunities. Having spent a few years in corporate myself, I do think there are opportunities there, but I think they're probably through the recruitment door as opposed to the consultancy. But what I would say is, if you pitch sort of contractors, but you do a plus model, you do also make it fairly easy for them to say yes to. But as you kind of say, it's always harder with corporates. The scale can always seem really attractive. They might be talking about tens, maybe 100, but landing it, takes a lot longer. So yeah, the mid cap is definitely a good hunting ground. Whilst we're talking about the opportunity here, I can see businesses who they're predominantly, and their main stream of income comes from something which is outside of the tech space. It's a great way, if people are looking at that tech opportunity, to speak to their customers about our ability and capability of doing more than what they think we do. So you don't need to rebrand the business, but you probably want to create a division of. So if I'm seeing Brett there, if we're looking at Cento, and then you can have Cento, yeah, Brett, you. We can have the consultancy part in terms of tech. We can brand it different, we can color it different, but it's an opportunity to go to some of your bigger customers, your Honeywell Systems, your Otises, and say, we can do this as well, because so you can leverage the relationships you've got, and you don't need it. I mentioned yesterday Pete Brzezinski, and I've just had a meeting with him. So he's got 6 runners now. So his principal part of their business is sales, SaaS sales into the US. He's got 6 contractors with you now, soon to become 8, I believe. No, he doesn't know one end from a PC from the other, bless him. That's quite harsh. But effectively, he then leveraged the relationship he's got with current customers to say, we can do this. And all he just literally said was, I just got people who can talk their talk, who can either scope the work, price the work, or deliver bums on seats as is required. Would that be a decent segue to ask you, in a nutshell, what do you do? How do you do it? What's the scope? Yeah, I mean, just on that Pete one, that's a brilliant one, because clients in the blockchain space, and it's a very you're dealing with a much smaller pool of resources. One of our leadership team actually came out of the blockchain space. He spent 3 years consultancy building blockchain projects for clients. So we turned up with a lead architect and a developer, both with blockchain experience. Immediately, the founders like, okay, you guys are on the same page, right? This is consulting level quality at contractor level rates. So that was just a slam dunk, and that's normally how we like to try to mirror that kind of. So if we know the space, we can find someone normally in our network or in our leadership team who's got that kind of experience, and then you turn up, you're speaking their language. That cements the relationship very quickly, and then you're getting into, right, how do we do this? Yeah, I think in terms of your question, I mean, how we do it, you know, it's every software project is a bit different. It's inherently a team sport. What we kind of think of it as, you know, we have a sort of outer network of 300 to 500 vetted contractors that are essentially in our kind of in our network, if you like. We have a leadership technical team that run projects, screen some of those contractors to us, and then we have a fixed perm footprint of people that obviously developers, and we kind of flex. So from the sort of 50 or so that we've got out to the sort of 300 to 500, that gives us the ability to scale really quickly. So we're not trying to subcontract this work out or anything like that. We're dealing with people that we know and we've built up over the years, either our own people or people we can bring in very quickly. And probably anyone who's run a contract desk, it's the same kind of thing. You'll have a bunch of contractors you know in the market, you've worked with, you know what they're capable of. But from there, you know, every project, it's about pulling together the right team, and always focus on, you know, what's the price point for the client and what's the capability they need. And from our perspective, you know, the capability, it doesn't matter if it's India or, you know, San Francisco, the capability should be shit hot developers or cloud engineers, whatever it is they need. But let's work across geographically until we find the right price point. And then, yeah, I won't bore everyone with the governance of how you do it, but statements of work, and, you know, we've got frameworks for all of that kind of back end stuff, breaking the work down into chunks, making sure it can be managed, building estimation techniques for software delivery. There's a whole kind of you know, bunch of experience that you need to bring to the table to be able to talk their language, but you don't need to get into any of that up front. That's the key thing. Keep it simple at the start.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go down that yeah, but you did say, right? So I really think this is bums on seats, or it's project teams and some sort of hybrid pricing model. If we go to this full-on model of proper SOW, I don't know anyone across the IDLC who will get funding for it, for starters, right? So there are some logistical issues. So let's go to the lower hanging fruit, build up some credibility there before we think about anything which is probably higher value. Can we just talk about the relationship as well at this point? Because so I love this, right? It's a pure partnership piece. We're plugging you in with our customer. We're doing scoping work together, presenting it back to the customer together. The idea is that, you know, with all of these things, there's always creepage. So the idea is that we're looking to make sure that we don't leave any revenue behind. It's a little bit like Saving Private Ryan. If there's revenue in their heels, we're going to go back and make sure we take everyone with us. No leaving bodies on the battle of the war, the warfield. So I think it's understanding how we do the scoping, how we engage with you guys on this. So if we've got an opportunity, I'm guessing that you would like to do some sort of pre-qualification before you put any manpower or effort behind it. Given that the fact that we're going to try and take the low-hanging fruit here, do you charge a fee for that part, or effectively, if it does look like it's fairly simple, a qualification call, and then try to put a proposal together, agree the pricing, and put it in front of the customer? How does the logistics of that work?
So the way I view it is, you know, we're not going to charge for anything until we've got some kind of you know, deal, right? We all want the same thing, which is to land a deal, works for us, works for the client, works for the people involved. So, you know, I had some good conversations with Brett from WWA, Pete. You know, these opportunities present themselves. Is get on a call, kind of talk about it, understand. You know, so we kind of catch up. And then what does the client need? Is it a few slides to articulate, you know, what we think the right answer is, some commercials? Is it a conversation with the client where you bring us in? We can also operate as a bit of a white label, if you like, at the start. So you're sort of bringing in some of the thought, the thinking, the understanding, without needing to introduce us until it's right. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're very much opportunity led, right? We're all grown-ups. We know that not every single deal lands, and sometimes you put time into something and it doesn't come off, and that's fine. What I'm interested in is talking to people and starting a conversation, because even if you try it a couple of times and it doesn't quite come off, the next time it becomes that much easier. And also there are little nuances, and and we're building a relationship as well. So it's zero cost, opportunity based, and let's land a deal that works for everyone. And then in terms of commercials, keep it very transparent. So if we know what the total scope of what we're looking at is, then we come up with something that's sensible. We're not in this business to kind of make some money for 6 months. We're here long term. We want this to build these relationships over a period of years. So it's not about trying to fleece anyone for the first month. It's trying to construct a deal that works for everyone.
Brilliant. So there's a few other bits of logistics here. People will need to be mindful of insurances, so it will have a meaningful effect on your operational costs. You will find some businesses in some locations that your insurance company just won't fancy it. So if anything is true, SOW, so it's all based on a deliverable. One, you can imagine that your finance people won't like it, because they're kind of very familiar with, you get a signed timesheet, we'll pay you against that signed timesheet. If it's only about you're going to get paid on milestones, then they're not going to fund your contractors getting paid monthly, and there's no guarantee they're going to get paid for the end of the day. And you do need to make sure that the quality of work is going to be delivered to the right level. One of the businesses I'm working with at the moment has currently got a 700 grand outstanding debt, and they've chased the client, and the client's re-sued them. Right, so there is an element of flakiness around this, but not so much as it's insurmountable, and you are making chunkier margins, so it's really easy. So if you think about Coltec, for example, their average deal value is 5K a week. So they're targeting, both Matt and Pat, to do 2 a month. So net gain, 10 grand a week GP across two different parts of their business. So 20 grand a week. So they want to add £250,000 in terms of weekly GP over the next 12 months. And the only way to do that is by doing it through an SOW, and they will get depleted in terms of their capability to actually deliver that. So having a plug-in, be it like it's an extra reservoir resource pool, or in some locations it's their preferred route to deliver it, is brilliant. But it gets chunky when you get some of the insurance knocked back and some of the finance knocked back on this stuff. Again, these are the moments where it's really important to have a grown-up team around you. Rafa Nadal, he's got a nutritionist, he's got someone looking after his finances, he's got someone making sure that he's getting in the right location at the right place, so you can just focus on his forehand, his backhand, and his serve. This is the team that you need to build around yourself if we're going to go down this route. And part of that is the Talink model. I'd also just suggest, and just putting a bit of colour on the drawing here, you can't ask recruiters to sell this stuff. They will fuck up and they will say the wrong things. You do need to have either you guys doing it, your sales directors doing it, or you have business champions. So your Lancelots out in the field to actually understand this. But some of the best opportunities that will come out of, which will come to a delivery vehicle like this in terms of contract, is when a customer says they want perm, just saying, yeah, and I always wanted to be 3 inches taller. Some things ain't gonna happen, and you have to push back. So rather than let your recruiters work shitty jobs, have some form of quality assurance or BD function that looks at that in the cold light of day. Trying to place perm heads at Huntington Life Sciences where they kill bunnies is really hard, but it's a brilliant opportunity to place loads of contractors there. So yeah, it's one of my best clients ever, by the way. One of the other things that we wanted to touch upon was some of the buying signals. So I think that might be, again, a nice little segue into that. what from the experience that you've currently got, David, what would trigger a decent buying signal, you think?
What do you mean by buying signal?
So recognizing an opportunity where you would actually sell a contract first solution, an SOW, a rapid response pop-up solution.
Yeah.
So if people haven't been overly familiar with the tech world in terms of this space, so it could be businesses looking at a cost reduction from existing supplier agreements in the consultancy space.
Yeah.
It could be lack of supply, and what they're doing is that they're leaving opportunity costs behind. They've left. Fuck off, Private Ryan. I'm interested in myself because Wales playing football, right? There's those opportunities where they're actually just saying, if we don't get this product out on time, then our share price will go down. We won't get any more investment. Our current investees are going to be having an issue with us, and just being aware to have a commercial relationship with boss to boss.
Yeah.
Is there any other ones that you're getting through more frequently at the moment that we might just want to just trigger some internal processes to recognize them?
Yeah, I think you've definitely touched on some big ones there. I think a pressing product, we got one at the moment where a client, so a product build has kind of been going on for quite a while, and suddenly there's a potential client, and this is building sort of MVP to be able to start making money, and a big client pops up, and suddenly it's all hands to the pump. So those kind of business-led problems, definitely I need to turn the horsepower up. I need to be able to turn the tap on and literally, whether that's parceling it up to a different team or just throwing in a load more bodies. Cost reduction is definitely one we've seen quite a bit, but cost reduction is also sometimes linked to I can't find anyone in the market, which is sometimes means I genuinely can, and sometimes means I only want to spend 500 a day, and everyone seems to cost 700 at the moment. If people are working from home 80% of the week anyway, what's the difference? You may as well go find your shit hot engineer at the right price point and get someone in on Monday rather than spend another 6 weeks hunting. I think those are kind of the big ones at the moment. I guess I do sort of come back to the USP that I think you guys have is those kind of relationships where you've got a senior, you've placed someone senior in the organization as a perm, or you've built a relationship with CIO or something like that. You definitely seem to have a different kind of relationship from consulting, because consulting is always trying to sell something, whereas recruitment is you need to invest time with the recruitment partner to get the right hire in. And when you have that relationship, you don't need to necessarily be talking tech, but it's business problems. What's on the agenda at the moment? Anything around those kind of key themes of, this consultancy is costing me too much. That's a massive red flag, or, I guess a flare in the sky. I've seen so many corporates just essentially using the likes of Accenture to body shop. That's just naughty. Medium SME market, maybe less of that, but again, it's am I getting my products actually out? Am I happy with my current state of my dev team? And the good thing about software is there's always the ability to mix up the team a bit, try different things, split the code a bit, and so if you can offer them options, whether it's go faster, do more with less money, those are all the kind of things that we kind of see time and time again. And what we always say is you never compromise on quality, right? There's always, we've hired some guys coming out of Amazon in India at the moment. It's harder to get into Amazon India than it is to get into Amazon US. It just is. There's more competition, and the engineering training that they get 2 years in Amazon is worth 4 or 5 in the corporate. So you can get hold of shit hot talent anywhere in the globe. So price point capability all day long. So I don't know if I added much there, Gary, but maybe just reinforce.
You've got a very sing-song voice. There was a load of words. It was all good. Is there? Have we got any questions before I let sort of David wrap up here and say if there's anything else that we've missed? But if anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah. Hi. Two actually. One is more of a lesson learned. When I began my own company less than 2 years ago, you've more or less answered this question. I focused heavily on selling on outcomes and speaking to IT people, trying to win the full supply of a project to them. And that to them was nothing new. The one thing I didn't focus on was on the talent piece and actually doing the being a recruiter, selling people simply, and then trying to expand that out. And you've more or less answered. I made it too complicated and I didn't get traction quick enough in 4 or 5 months. And now I'm going to try and go back into that world, making it all about talent. But underpinning that is we can supply you that talent on a better quality, well, a better type of contract and manage the outcomes. So
I think that's just such a good space for you guys, because I mean I did a couple of interesting deals with a recruiter years back in a corporate where they'd just been delivering constantly on, you know, we were putting contractors and some perms, and that relationship was there, and then we slowly, like, we kind of did a version of what Gary's described, where we suddenly said, well, actually what we need is like a pool of developers. You know, what about if we got a WeWork floor and 50 desks and started throwing contractors in there, and before you knew it, it was sort of backing into an SOW type solution. But it was just constantly talking about, God, it's great getting these contractors, but you know, if we could manage them, or if we could, and so we backed our way into something. I was on the client side at the time. I was, you know, in the corporate, and that only came about because they've been delivering on the talent front, and I knew that they knew exactly what we wanted in talent. How that was delivered, you know, that at the end of the day, we had a business problem, and you know, talent's kind of led the answer, but it wasn't really where we ended up. But where we ended up was more like a statement of work with a predictable kind of run rate and a growth rate. So just
And that leads to the specific question, which is, there's platforms out there like, for example, Zivio. There's also another one called WorkSavvy. And these are basically designed for agencies or companies to manage and deliver its external workforce. So it gives you visibility and more control. I wonder whether you feel that that's an important piece to this. Could you scale bigger and quicker by having a platform through which you communicate to a client about the project and specify what the workers are doing, and you can report on it? Or are you doing this without that and doing more in a classic recruiting way, but just using the outcome-based contracts?
So I'm not familiar with those two examples, which maybe partly answers the question, but I mean, we tend to focus on managing the people in the right way for the client. So you know, we use good old-fashioned things like Slack and so on. I think trying to use platforms can often give the illusion of, you know, they're going to solve all these problems miraculously, but in reality, you're just introducing another communication channel, and if it doesn't fit with the client very well, then suddenly it's just another thing to manage. I'm not running down those platforms. I don't know them genuinely, but you know, if a client,
I will. I'll run them down. Look, 100% is totally pointless. If you've got a customer who would like to work with you, and that's the tool that they use, then accommodate them and do what it is that they want you to do. If not, please God, don't make your life more complicated than it needs to be.
Interesting.
And the lesson that I've learned, there's 2 points to make on that. If the people who are growing the fastest in terms of their contract piece are selling a rapid response pop-up solution to one of the big problems, which could be costs, it could be distraction, it could be availability, it could be bottlenecking. They're just going to say that you need to get your MVP out to market as quick as possible. You need to fix these challenges within your business as quick as possible. You've got investors. It doesn't matter how big your business is. The minute you've got £5 worth of investment in your company, it's not yours anymore. and people are looking at you in terms of your performance. Sell rapid response. And if part of that pitch is, and I think it's one of the reasons why Talink offer you two fixes to this. One, that they can help you price, scope, and deliver parcels of work. Or two, do you want some bums on seats? Right, so that could be, so effectively you've got your traditional contract route, you've got people helping you with extra resource, which is very cost effective, or you could do an SOW with the levels of assurance that you would get from a grown-up organization, but a fraction of the cost. Now, within there somewhere, the customer can't say no to all three because he's going to buy one of them. And it's a really easy way to price this and just say, what you're buying on price is about quality, is about getting rid of a headache. Which one do you want? Where's the P? Right. So that's a really easy way to do this. Don't go and over complex something which is fucking. Do you want some bums? Do you want this thing delivered? We'll do it for you. Yeah. So don't overcomplicate any of this stuff. When you think about the likes of Coltec and work with Aptitude and AmSource, all their contracts are less than a page. Less than a page. So yeah, don't do it. It's also worth noting some of the other businesses who are doing brilliantly have leveraged relationships with some of the customers that they own. So, for example, Workday. So if you can look at Core Team and Paul Bogle, he's the only supplier to Workday that they recommend as a third-party agency / consultancy. So when they embed Workday anywhere, there are certain parts of the project piece that actually Workday aren't really asked about. And Paul can make a living. He'll get 200 runners constantly just delivering that stuff. And it's the stuff they don't fit, which actually makes the Workday solution sound better. And when they're selling the product, they can also say, and by the way, you don't need fucking unicorns here to deliver this. We've got a stream and a ready supply of people who can deliver that for you. So Workday fucking love them. Even though they're directly competitive and being a competitor to them on the other side of the desk. So it's a very clever way to have ready supply. Great question, by the way. I knew the answer. It's always a great question. Is there anybody else got any other questions that they'd like to ask?
Nick, did you have a question still? Nick? No? Okay.
Are we done? Is that a wrap?
I've got a couple, Gary, just very quickly, if that's all right. David, just on the, just say looping your business in, what, so the big barrier normally and the rationale behind the big four is that quality metric, how like they hire the best graduates, there's that prestige. How do you assess quality? How do you quantify that to a client? So
one easy way at the moment is you can create a sort of avatar of an average developer, right? And this can be flexed depending on what their preference is. But so one at the moment is a guy with 4 or 5 years Amazon experience coming out of India, exceptional communication skills, so you can put a price point around that. You can talk about their engineering pedigree, but obviously we have our own techies that will assess them. But when you use those recognized brands, those Silicon Valley brands, you're overcoming a massive hurdle, which is, how do I know they're that good? Well, do you think Microsoft, Amazon, Stripe, PayPal, they're not hiring naughty people, and if you live for a couple of years there, then the standard's right. So I think it's that using other Silicon Valley like brands or big bulge bracket banks is helpful. We can go in a different direction as well and kind of talk about, so we can turn up and talk to a CTO or somebody and reassure them quite quickly that technically we're on the same page. So which is another way of kind of gaining credibility. So, if you're putting people in front of them with recognized brands on their CV and you're having a conversation with them, move it in a technical direction, convince the CTO, right, these guys, they know what they're on about. Okay, they're going to find the right people. They're going to align to my stack. They're going to align to the way I want to work. You kind of press all the buttons quite quickly for them. And that kind of, by the way, that kind of consulting, I think Gary kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, I was one of those graduates many, many years ago, and you know, getting sent out to a Vodafone or a God knows where, you know, with barely any experience, and you turn up with a briefcase and a laptop and sit around for a couple of days wondering what you're supposed to be doing, but you look the part. I'm not running down all consultancies, but there is quite a.
Are you sure? It sounds like.
Well, let's just say the way you framed it is, you know, good contractors come in, they smash they get it done.
Yeah.
Often consultancies, they if you genuinely need thought leadership, what you're actually buying is the partners and the senior leadership team and some of their IP. Most projects, certainly past the first bit, that they don't need that thought leadership. What they need is people who can deliver. So using those kind of firms is just a very expensive way of getting the job done, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I think second point to that was you'd sort of alluded to very, very quickly around the white labeling of the solution. So I suppose I was keen to understand, we're engaging a client and we've productized, we deliver statement of work type proposition. Mm-hmm. And then a team of talent people rock up, for example. Where does that white label start and end from a commercial perspective for the client, not for us, but for the end client?
So I guess there's a few angles to it. One is, you know, we can sit right behind you, so we invoice you, you invoice the client, so they're kind of blind to it. You can give people email addresses. I mean, you can make it as white label as you want. In a sense, they could just see it as you've got a capability, or you can introduce some of the people through the door a bit and say that these are an extension of my team. This is part of my offshore capability, or whatever you want to call it. And then, you know, you create a slightly more direct relationship between the client and the delivery team, but you're sitting there managing the relationship. I would always say you keep the relationship, certainly with the senior team and the client. You hand off to people to do delivery, whether that's bums on seats or software. But if you really wanted to white label that can also be done. They would just pop up as your own people, you know, give them an email address type thing. So
that's great. It's
pretty flexible, yeah.
That's great, thank you.
No problem.
Are we done? I need to shoot. Is there anybody else with anything else? Brilliant. Right. Thank you everyone for your time. David, thank you very much. I think that's really, really useful. We're going to go send that out to everybody. Ali, you give it that? We send that out to everyone with your details, and I'm sure you'll be more than willing to take some calls, talk about anything specific, and talk about any projects that people might have, and just see if there's any projects out there we can go and upsell. So yeah, brilliant.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Brilliant. Have a good day. Come on, England.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Gary.
Cheers.